three, 1, 2, 3.
Hey, Bills Mafia, we know there's one thing on your mind every day. Your team, the Buffalo Bills. So Matt Bove and Sal Capaccio are here to bring you the latest news, notes, and opinions straight from the source right here, right now, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Matt Bove, Sal Capaccio, and in between us today, we are very, very excited to be joined by Buffalo Bills General Manager and President of Football Operations, Brandon Beane. Thanks for joining us on the show. We appreciate that.
Did you see how many characters that takes up on that lower third there? Bills General Manager and President of Football. We couldn't even spell out operations. That's a lot of words.
You could have just Bills GM and left it at that. We're all good.
How's the transition? What does a President of Football Operations person do as opposed to like what just the GM does? How much more is on your plate with this new title?
It's really not a lot. It's just a structural thing as far as before we had the reporting structure. Sean reported to Terry, I reported to Terry, and we just set it up that the head coach and the coaching staff reported through me just to make things. It's a similar structure Terry's had in other parts of his organizations, and with the transition, how he wanted to do things, this is how it went.
Is it all different around the league? You've talked to a lot of GMs. Is there a different model and structure depending on where you go, what city it is?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the coach is the king dog, and he has a personnel guy, or the GM's kind of his personnel guy, but he's in charge of the entire football operation. Sometimes it's like what we did have where two different guys report up, and then sometimes you have it where the GM hires the head coach. The GM's ultimately responsible for the entire football operation, and he reports up to ownership, like that, which is the way that Terry wanted to, do things going forward.
Can you walk us through what this week looks like? So we are recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Some of you will listen to this and watch this before the final preseason game. Other of you will find this afterwards. But what does this week look like getting into the final preseason game and then the days between that and then ultimately cutdown day on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, we could be here a while. It's a lot. It takes time, but yeah, first thing is let's play this game.
Yep.
And then let's get out of this game, come in here, play Thursday night, come in here Friday, assess where we are medically. Where we obviously have some guys that won't play in this game because of some medical things. So we'll meet with our medical team and kind of get updates. Is there anyone that needs to go on injured reserve that's not going to be available for at least the first 4 games of the season? Obviously we have a Tyrell Shavers who's on PUP. We know that he'll remain on PUP as we go into the season. So are there any things like that? And then you just kind of eliminate one thing. All right, this is medically what's going to happen. Now you start working down your roster, and you basically go through each phase for offense, defense, special teams, and you're kind of just running through, these are the guys that are clearly making it. And then you get to your ones that are, you're battling, that we're going to see in this last game, battling for these last spots. You discuss their special teams role and their line of scrimmage role. Sometimes a guy who's not quite as good as a line of scrimmage player as he is a special teamer makes it over. And so you're assessing all of those things, and then you're also discussing, all right, guys that are not considered veterans, you have to get them through waivers.
Yes.
What are the guys that we feel are most concerned of losing by getting claimed from another team? And that can be part of the discussion, which guy you're going to go with. A veteran that you want to sign back to your practice squad, if he's willing to do that, it's an easier process. After you make your decision, you start paring the roster down. We'll probably do it in a couple of phases.
Yeah.
And the roster pare down. The rosters have to be set at 6 p.m. on Sunday to the 53. So, sometime before that, we will have met with every player that's not going to be on the 53, have a candid conversation of there. And if it's a guy that we do want back on practice squad, you kind of start that recruiting pitch and explaining what the role is. And, literally I just sat in here with Mark Carrier and, who's our director of player engagement, and kind of went through with the rookie class. A lot of these guys don't know what the waiver process means. And then practice squad, they've never really been on that. And explaining to them, practice squad's different. When I came into the league, there was 5 on the practice squad. You got 6 if you had a quarterback. Okay, that's where practice squads. And they used to just be, hey, just read the cards. If you needed someone else, because veterans weren't on, you went and found a veteran. It could be mid-October. You generally were not going to your practice squad. Nowadays, they're part of your roster. It's almost like your minor league, but they're not in another city. Yeah, they're in your city. They're practicing every day. And so we value these guys. And what I'm explaining to them is you have to prepare every single day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of a game week, like you are playing. It happens. You remember the one year Gabe Davis rolls his ankle on a Friday, and we have to, you have to have call-ups. So it happens every year where a player during the week we think is going to play on Sunday has a setback, and we have to call the – so I explain to them the value of practice squad and going, we get 3 elevations. After that, if we want to elevate you again, we have to, Latu last year was that way, practice squad all year. And and then we elevated him as 3 times, and we ultimately decided we needed him on the 53. And so we signed him, explain that whole process. And we give them names of other guys that have been here historically, so they can see, that's how, DeMar Hamlin started his career, or some of the other guys that are currently here.
All right. So given the new structure, when you go through this process, what is your communication like with the coaching staff, with Joe and his staff, and how you ultimately arrive to who you want? Because there's going to be guys who pull for one guy and a guy pulls for another. And no, you need him for special teams. No, I need him at wide receiver. How does all that work?
Yeah, it's good. So starting with the blue red, backtrack here, we have a personnel meeting after that's the first kind of game like scenario for these players. So it's a chance for each position coach and coordinator to kind of give where they see this player at, where he's trending up or trending down, what we need to see. And Joe and I are listening. And, on the offensive side, Joe's going to pipe in a little more than maybe on the defense. So we've done that after that game, after the Carolina game, after the Cleveland game. So we kind of have a good feel of how the coach sees them, how we see them in the the personnel scouting area. And that's some of the remaining questions. So after we play this game, we get the medical. It will probably be a tighter group. We'll sit down with Joe and myself, and at least at the coordinator level, sometimes we may call in a position coach just to one more time tell me why you like this guy over this guy, or and the special teams coach. If you're not talking about a lineman, or a quarterback, he's going to be involved. And how many phases is this player going to play for you, versus what their role is on offense or defense. And ultimately, there's got to be a decision made. Joe will get to, weigh in there, and then we'll pare it down. And sometimes things happen. You may be wanting to keep a guy, and then all of a sudden someone becomes available for a trade, and you go, wow, let's go get this guy. We had that a couple years ago. We traded for Brandon Codrington at the last minute. And so a player thought they had made the roster. This is the tough part of it. Right. And then this opportunity came to do that, and now we have to make a roster move, and so that's kind of how it works.
I actually had an original question that I was going to ask as a follow-up, but what you said made me pivot a little bit. Has there ever been a guy or a success story you think of that was kind of fighting for a roster spot at the end that really turned into a player? Doesn't even have to be here. It could have been in Carolina, but like the position coach comes in, Brandon, we really like insert name here, and then they had an established career. Does anybody come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's guys. I mean, Buffalo Joe was a guy that, when he first started playing, it was like maybe he'd be a practice squad player that you'd consider to. This guy's going to get claimed. Yeah, if you lose him. I mean, Levi Wallace was a guy that started on our practice squad, was close to making it. We brought him up. Dane Jackson, both of those guys went on to get paid elsewhere, paid to a certain level. Tyrell Shavers You know, I know he was a
that's right.
fan favorite for a couple of training
Yeah.
camps and was a close call a couple of
Mhm.
times and didn't make it. Ultimately, last year, you know, makes it, has a, you know, very successful year for us, had the unfortunate injury, but yeah, there's always some guys. I wouldn't say there's been a guy like that that I'm aware of that's turned himself into like an all-pro level
yeah,
player.
of course.
But at least those have been success stories.
So my actual original follow-up was going to be, so we're talking about this team this year specifically. Realistically, we're going into the game on Thursday. Like, how many jobs are up for grabs? How many people do you have a good feel that, like, that guy's going to be on the 53 as long as they're healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're in the 50-ish range.
Okay.
You kind of know most likely if healthy.
Yes.
You know, that could always change, which, you know, we still have a game to play. But there's a number of guys that can go a different way. You know, how many outside backers do you keep? How many of the D linemen do you keep? How many O linemen? How many wide receivers? So it's like, hey, we can keep, I'm just making this up, we can keep 4 of these 9,
Yeah.
you know, or 3 of these 7. Like this is how the puzzle would work. And again, one of the things you're talking about are which one of these guys are veterans that are easier to get back to practice squad.
Sure.
Versus, and again, you could say that for the veteran, another team could offer him, you know, an immediate job on their 53, and they go take that opportunity as well.
The guy who comes to my mind, frequent listeners and watchers of the podcast know, I'm Cam Lewis. Cam Lewis is the guy that he was, and then, man, once he made it, right, it was you weren't getting rid of him, right? I mean, I know he's on a different team now, but really good success story. Speaking of UB right there, what have you learned about since you got in this position till now? I know some of the rules have changed, but how is it different than when you first started in this job this week? What have you learned about the process, maybe from a personnel standpoint, from a player standpoint, how to treat it or what happens?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm always been a people person and want to shoot people straight, but I think I'm trying to, on this, you know, anytime you release a player, as long as I'm in town, I make sure I do it. I think in this situation, we just talked about how close the margins are for a Tyrell Shavers, a Cam Lewis, and there will be some just like that, you know, this coming weekend. And you're struggling with the decision of, you know, always trying to make the right decision. And you know that some of these young men are maybe having a sleepless, you know, couple of nights or whatever. So you feel for them. And I think it's just giving them the forum, being straight up, being honest, which that's never changed, but just not trying to rush through this thing. You know, you have a lot of guys you have to work through, you know, they have meetings that day. And so it's an exit process, but trying to give them time to ask questions, make an open forum. Like, you know, if they disagree with something or didn't think something was right, letting them say that. Don't take it personal. It can be emotional. Everyone handles the stress of this situation differently. And so the thing I've learned is don't take anything someone says is personal, because it's emotional. These guys are fighting, you know, for their career. And it's hard because, you know, some of these guys have been here over a year. They've been on the practice squad all year. They trained. And then there's others that came in this draft class, you know, or we signed them as a free agent, that you've had them the last 4, 5, 6 months, and you've seen the blood, the sweat, the tears, the time on task, and you empathize that they just missed making out to 53.
You brought up Brandon Codrington. How does a trade like that come to be? And I don't even just mean him specifically, but that's always interesting to me. Like, how does it work? Are you on the phone with the GM?
Is there like a text thread of 32 GMs that you're just like checking in every day with each other?
Like, I understand, I think, the names that are out there, the big names. Okay, it's like, okay, you got to check in on insert name here. But Brandon Codrington, that happened, and I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know that was a possibility. So how do those trades and those moves happen this week?
Yeah, as you're working your way through the preseason and monitoring your roster and who's performing well and maybe what injuries you have.
Yeah.
You know, I'm having constant conversations with our personnel staff, Brian Gaine, Terrence Gray, Chris Marrow, Curtis Ruckavina, Seal, all those guys, of what's out there, and they are monitoring each team, each position. And we're talking about guys, this guy is on the bubble. Sometimes they're having, hey, reach out to this team. They look like they're heavy at this position.
Sure.
Are they willing to move one or not? Is in that case, our returner situation was not solidified.
Yeah.
So we were trying to figure out the answer here, which we thought we had at least an acceptable answer. But if we found what we thought was a better answer, and so you looked at that situation, you go, all right, they got 2 returners. I doubt they're going to keep both. And so then you start those open line communications. Now they could move them somewhere else. That was obviously an in-division trade.
Yeah.
So there were other returners that we were having conversations. That one we felt they were willing to do, made the move. And so those conversations sometimes can start a couple of weeks early.
Yeah.
They can sometimes not start until after the last preseason game. Teams can get more serious, like, okay, I've got 2 good players that are 53 worthy. I can only keep one. I'd like to get something for them because I know they're never going to clear waivers.
Yeah.
And so then they start reaching out. And
who reaches out? Who contacts? Like, could it be somebody from your staff just says, hey, to somebody on their personnel staff, the Jets in that case, let's say Codrington?
It's both ways.
Yep.
And a lot of times we all have different relationships. Like, I'll tell you, in the last 3 days, I've had conversations with 5 or 6 GMs. Okay. But Chris Marrow, Curtis, Gain, those guys have their own contacts at different teams. So sometimes they're like, hey, I'll check in with this team. One of them's like, I'll check in with that team. And so we keep each other on a text thread of, hey, I just got a call from this personnel guy or this whoever from this team. And we keep a running text thread of where they think they're going to be heavy. And then also they're looking for this. If we feel like we have a guy, we'd be willing to move.
You guys handle the NFL like at my station, how we handle what's going on Instagram in a text thread. We're like, who is posting this on Instagram today? And then we respond. That to me is so interesting. And then do all of those pro guys, you said that they have different relationships. Do they also have something that they always handle? Like, does somebody have a certain division that they're always doing, or is it strictly just relationship based?
It's relationship based more than anything. And ultimately, if it's something that's going to work its way up, like they feel like it's pretty serious, then both GMs are going to get involved and get on the phone and make sure, because, it's a communication game. Sometimes someone, says a guy's more available than he is, or he's available, but it'd be a ransom to do, like, we would move him, but you're not really going to want to pay what I would have to charge you to move him. So that's where I got to get on the phone and just confirm the seriousness of the situation.
Okay, so you just said here on the pod, and over the last few days, you've been talking with GMs. We're going to have people listening going, okay, Brandon Beane's talking with GMs. What's happening? Okay, you have Vita Vea situation. Last year, Waddle, Rashid and Shaheed, all these things. And you'll say, hey, I check in on these things. I'm in on these things. But ultimately, they don't come to Buffalo Bills. And then you get criticized for, I'm in on it, but it never happened. Take us through the process of the margins between it happening and it not happening. And you can get as specific or as general as you want here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Sal. I think first and foremost, my job for the Buffalo Bills is to investigate any player that is truly available. I think that's my job. We're always, we want to put the best 53 players we can on the team. And whether that player makes 40 million or, 1 million, whatever if we think it's a player that can help us. And sometimes the Bills can be tabbed with, one of the guys I just mentioned, our pro scouting director, it may never get to me. They call someone and do a check and they're like, yeah, we're going to want this or this, or, hey, the player wants a whole new contract. And we're like, okay, we did check on it, but we know we're not going to be able to go. But a lot of times that still gets put out there. The Bills or whatever else team checked on it, but we weren't necessarily serious about it.
Because maybe the agent wants to drum up interest.
Because the agent wants to drum up interest, or the team's trying to put out, hey, I got other teams that are interested. So that can happen. The other thing is, it can be down to a few teams, and we are all in. We want to do it. We're talking to them, and sometimes it's been we were willing to give them enough compensation. They weren't willing to either trade in division, or I'd rather send them to the NFC than to the AFC.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's so many factors, and again, there's sometimes that we would be willing to meet the contract, but we felt they were asking for more than what was fair for the draft compensation, or sometimes it's they want a player at a certain position back that you just don't have or you're not willing to give up. And again, that goes back. There's so many different nuances to this of involvement. Sometimes it's one phone call. Okay, we checked on it, but we're not involved. We sometimes see stuff for going on for 2 weeks. The Bills are involved, and we were out long time ago. But I'm not going to go out and say we're in and out every time. That's not the right way to do business, because then anytime you don't say you're out, they're going to know.
I also know you well enough to know you're not going to necessarily throw anybody under the bus, but I will ask you, when you were at the trade deadline last year, we talked with you in that day, and you were a bit frustrated. Did you think you had a deal with somebody in place for a player? Did you think you had a deal? Did you have a deal and it kind of fell apart?
I would say, here's what I would say, Sal, is in that context of last year, it was what was said to be what it would cost.
Okay.
It was a moving target, and ultimately they were not willing to trade in division.
Okay.
And there was never it was, well, you're going to have to be somewhere in here, and then you start throwing it somewhere in there. Well, we need to talk about it a little more. And then, you know what? I don't think we're going to move them.
And then that costs you maybe other moves because you're maybe trying to get that done.
You're exactly. You have to kind of, you can't put, the same eggs in 3 different baskets until, this team, that team, and that team, you're willing to give up this pick, because if 2 of them say yes, your credibility's on the line.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now, if you're straight up and say, hey, I'm also working on this, if this other transaction, I think you can do that, which I've done before. Hey, I'm in on another wide receiver. I'm in on another whatever.
Yeah.
If that happens first, they have to understand that could happen. But yeah, I mean, I would say there was a couple of moves last year that there were probably some moving targets said to be interest, but they weren't really interested in moving them to us.
So the most notable, at least the one that comes to mind, trade you have made since you were the general manager here would probably be Steph. And obviously that led to a ton of success. And when we were in that process, I remember you explaining to us like you had checked in on him, didn't seem like he was going to be available. You followed up down the road. You guys kind of came to an agreement. So that would be the, I guess, extreme case of like you're following somebody for a while.
Yeah.
Is that how most of them come to be? Or some of them just like, found out guy is available, we're going to make an offer and see if they're truly available?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think there's some that you track, for a good while. And that maybe their contract's coming to a head, or you can just see they've drafted someone. They're at some point they're going to be willing to move this player. And so it's just staying in touch, staying in tune. And you hope that by the time that team's making them available, that you're in financial position, or that someone else is not, in a more dire situation where they're going to trump whatever you deem as a fair offer to beat you. It may be that if they had offered this player up 3 months earlier, I could have done it. But now that I've signed someone else, I can no longer be as aggressive to do that. So timing is everything. There are some trades that come up very last minute. I mean, even Steph's, we were tracking them. We had checked with Minnesota in season that previous year, but they had said no, and we had heard nothing different until literally the day it happened. He put a tweet or something out.
Yeah.
We followed up on it. That was when Joe, Shane, and Dan were here. One of those guys followed up on it.
Yeah.
Got me off of a phone on something else, and then checked in with Minnesota and got that rolling. That was truly done in about 4 to 5 hours.
Wow.
From knowing, because before it was compensation was never discussed because they were like, we're not willing to move them.
Interesting.
Matt Bove, Sal Capaccio, Bills general manager and president of football operations, Brandon Beane, here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Check it out wherever you download your podcasts, and of course watch at Sal Sports on YouTube. You brought up the practice squad. I just want to make sure the operation is correct, because the way I understand it is, okay, all practice squad players are free agents, so they can sign with another team and go right to their 53. But let's just say you have a guy, and this has happened many times, I'm sure. He's on your practice squad. A team wants to sign him. Does the agent generally tell you, Brandon, we're thinking of doing this. If you're going to put us on the 53, we'll stay here? Like, what are those conversations? And have you had it where, hey, man, if you would have told us, we would have put you on our 53. Why did you leave us? Does that happen too?
That's happened. Yeah. I mean, it's all those have happened. Normally what you would hope is that the agent would call you and say, hey, Team X would like to add him to their 53, which basically guarantees that player 3 weeks.
Yep.
Which gives them, a pension credit on their season. So you understand that. And what you would like to do is have that conversation, and then you look at it internally. Do we think sometime in the next few weeks that we can do it? Cam Lewis is a great example. One team came after him a couple different times and we had talks with Cam, we had talks with his agent, credit to his agent, and we were able to keep him here, with the promises of what would happen in the future. Dane Jackson was one of those guys. We've had a number of players. Alec Anderson, that team had a flight book for him getting ready to roll, and we got, Cromer and I got him over here and talked to him and explained, and he stayed, and look where his career is now. So you hope that you have that opportunity, because when they're on your practice squad, they are free agents. They don't have to go. If you release a player and they're on the waiver system and they claim them, there's nothing you can do about it. I've actually had players before say, do I have to go? I want to stay on your practice squad. Or I want to go to your practice squad. But yes, you would love to have the opportunity.
Wait 24 hours. We want to bring you back.
Please.
That's right.
That's the fair thing, is to at least give us a chance and then make a decision. And sometimes we can say, hey, we can sign you within the next 2 weeks. Sometimes we're like, hey, it may take me a little longer. I hope you'll be patient, but I understand if you got to do what you got to do.
You ever have a player go back to college?
No. Wow. No. Let's hope we can get that.
How wild is that?
Yeah.
Is this completely the Wild West?
Yes.
I've never seen anything like. I mean, nobody has ever seen anything
more
like
than
that.
the Wild West. It's the wild, 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 wild West.
Yes.
But
I don't know how you guys can plan for this stuff now, and the evaluations, not knowing what's happening here. But I guess you just have to do what you have to do from your side of things here, and kind of let the chips fall where they may. And if you're confronted with that, then you have to deal with it, I guess.
Yeah, the rules are the rules that you have to constantly, as we see, you have to adapt and understand them. And so if that rule stays and guys are considering that, then you have to have those conversations and adjust. If they're wanting to go back there, currently that's a legal thing. Well, hopefully not forever, but we'll see.
Right? What are the pros of the new landscape? Right, we hear about the cons all the time. Are there pros? I know you're pretty tight into the college game and you've got a lot of connections and really close relationships there. Are there any benefits to you on the NFL side now with the way that this has changed?
The most recent change, I don't see it. Like, I think if a player is serious about being in the pros, you want to get that started, and get your career rolling. Because if you're 24, 25, 26 years old and you're going against 18 and 19-year-olds, and you couldn't get that done when you were 18, 19, 20, but that's a big difference.
Yes.
I mean, just think of where you are physically as a 24-year-old to an 18, 19-year-old. So that's going to be part of your evaluation that we're going to have when you do finally run your clock out of, and what was his confidence level? He couldn't do it. This is a grown man's game. Yeah. And he went back for that. So never say never, but I don't see it as a positive, as far as what their NFL career will entail after that.
Yeah. Brandon, let's talk a couple positions and specific players. So you signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and when you do, there's a lot of people saying, you know what? That's a little different than what the Bills would have done maybe in years past. Different kind of personality. Did you, and whether that's right or wrong, did you sit down with Joe and say, we want to target maybe a different kind of personality than we've had here in this locker room over the last few years, and how you get to a guy like that?
Yeah, I think, anytime you have a new head coach, you go through everything, and it's part of the interview process, and part of how do you see leading this team if you were to get the job. And so along the way, as you're starting to narrow down in second interview and start talking about what you like about the roster, things you would change, that's one of the things Joe brought up was that I would like a little more grit, a little more edge in some areas. And even if that's a personality that's not
Toes the
something
line?
that toes the line. And so it's each case is on. You don't want, a locker room full of too many personalities, but in that case, that's why I think it's important to bring a guy like CJ in. He obviously has been on a number of teams, and depending on which team you ask, you might get a different answer of how their tenure went. But we were able to bring CJ in, spend a day with him at different times, and understand. Tell us about your stop here. Tell us what went well. Tell us why you think it ended early. And to his credit, he took some of the blame. He gave out what he thought was fair, unfair through his prism. And then we explained in our own way, like, if you want to be here, this is, we like your edge. We like this. There are going to be some guardrails, though.
Sure.
And as long as you can stay within the guardrails and you're playing at the level that we know you can play at, you're here. But if it gets gets outside that and becomes a distraction or detract from your team, that's when we would have to part ways. And so I think as long as you have open, honest conversation, communication from the get-go, it's like when you get married, you know what I mean? Let's put all this out on the table right now, and that way there's no surprises along the journey.
Going from CJ Gardner-Johnson to a kicker seems a little strange, but that's what we're ultimately going to do. I did want to ask you about Tyler Bass, because in years past you have had competition at whether punter, kicker, whatever it was. You don't have another person right now. So what is it that is giving you the confidence of like, hey, Tyler Bass is the guy coming off of a year where he was unavailable and coming off of some inconsistent performances?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, Matt. I think, listen, I would love, if the roster allowed you, I would love to have as much competition everywhere. So I'll say that. Like, would I love to have had competition for Tyler? Yes, of course. But when you have a punter battle and some of the other battles that we have going on, plus you're going to have injuries, we just decided it was going to be too hard to have a punter battle and a kicker battle. And part of that is the confidence in Tyler. And we're watching him this spring. Part of that was if we didn't feel things were trending in the right direction this spring, then, and Tyler was aware of this. Hey, at any point, if we don't feel like we're seeing the guy that we know at his best and what he can do, we will add competition. And that could be in this, in June, July, or if we get into training camp and we feel it's not going the right way, or we have doubt. If you give us doubt, so we've been open and honest with Tyler about that. To his credit, I think he's had a good preseason. I think he's had a good training camp. And so as long as that continues, that's kind of the way we go. We're hoping that we feel like he's fully healthy this year. Obviously missed last year, but he knows Tyler's a pro. He knows whether there's a guy kicking, with him or not in this camp, that he has to perform. If he doesn't, there's going to be other kickers out there that we're going to bring in. We've brought in guys before, and with him here, if we thought he was in a little bit of a funk, and we wouldn't hesitate to do that again if we feel that's what is best for the Bills.
Okay.
We did this on purpose, by the way. We left it to the WGR guy to ask about wide receivers. I just want you to know that. So we're going to get into it right now.
Let's go. Why did it take this long to get on the wide receivers?
All right. So Keon Coleman, a lot's been made of his first 2 years, and we know that some of the issues off the field that have led to him, not even being available on the field. And then the press conference happens. There's much to say about that. How have you and him both approached the last couple of months? And honestly, I know he's injured right now, but anything you want to say about where you think his game is and his fit on this roster?
Yeah, I think Keon, obviously Keon had his rookie year. He had last season where he had some setbacks. and which led to, the press conference as you alluded to. Keon, the thing I'll say about him is he hasn't run from the mistakes he's made or the errors he's made. And I attribute him to just it's maturity. If you want to put him down to one word, it's just, and so part of what we try to do with all these guys, they're young men. They come from different walks of life, different situations. And to me, the easy thing to do is to just throw them out, go get another one and do that. But we want to have good football players and we want to develop them on the field. That's the number one. That's why we're here to win games. But part of our job too is to develop them as young men, and, being great men in our society, and in this case in Buffalo.
That's often connected, by the way.
And it's very connected.
Yeah.
And so I think that's very important here is, this was a 21-year-old man young man that we drafted. 22, still things had not clicked. I think the thing about him that I give him credit for, you can have a direct, honest conversation and you don't get excuses. And that's one of the things is like, if you make excuses and you play the victim role, that's when we're talking about moving on.
Right.
And so I give him credit. And then the other part of it is you have a harder road. You have to prove, like anybody comes in with a fresh slate, never done anything wrong. They don't have to prove as hard. Someone who had some of the, the immature things occur, you have to work even harder to win back the trust of the organization, the coaches, your teammates, and everything. And I think he's answered the bell in every way that he could. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder. And I think his teammates saw that when he got back here in the spring, have seen that, through OTAs, through the summer, through training camp. Unfortunately, the last, week plus, he had the injury in the practice at the stadium, or the game. Was it the game? No, it was the game. Yeah, it was the game. But he's attacking his rehab, doing everything like a pro. And I think if he continues the way he is, he will help our football team here in 2026.
You put out a statement last weekend in regards to everything that Ed Oliver is going through.
Mm-hmm.
Parents. I can't even put into words, I'm sure, what that would be like for him. But my question to you is, how as an organization do you support somebody, in this instance, Ed, going through something so real and so raw? What do you guys do? What is your role in that?
Yeah, I think that's where the relationships that you build up with people. Mm-hmm. In this case, Ed's been here since 2019, and you treat people the right way. You build trust for the moment when it's needed, and in this case, letting this is a player, whether it was a staff member, anyone. Mm-hmm. Lending them any support that you can give them in any way. Mm-hmm. And everyone goes through grieving in mourning, however you want. We all do it differently. Mm-hmm. We all have, however we deal with that. And so you want to do what they want to do. This mm-hmm. is their decision. And that goes back to, Ed being a private person and was not, looking to talk about this mm-hmm. and this is a private matter. Yes. and let him and his family grieve. And we will, so it's really just letting him lead the way of what does he and his family need each day, mm-hmm. From when it occurred to where we're at now. And that will continue. He knows he has our 100% support, whatever, not only he needs, but the rest of his family and his teammates have done that. And you also know sometimes people just need a hug. Sometimes people just want to get away from it and live life and get out here and play football as a distraction. And this job and this profession can be a distraction for different problems that other people have in life. Listen, life happens to me as well. Sometimes it's like, man, I just want to get here and get distracted off of something I'm dealing with, mm-hmm. Somewhere else. And so we're all humans. It really is just, to me, it's listening, being empathetic, support, and whatever, in this case, the player needs to help him work through, the day.
Mm-hmm. The number one thing that I get asked when I go on out of town media markets, they want to know about the Buffalo Bills is in some way, shape, or form, we'll ask about pressure on Joe Brady, pressure on Brandon Beane. You've gotten to a certain level, and now you have a new first-time head coach. There's pressure that you put on yourself and that Joe puts. There's pressure internally, maybe from people around you. There's pressure from the fans. How do you view this year for that word? When that word comes up, Joe is a first-time head coach, but he's not taking over a 2-win football team either. He's taking over a Super Bowl contender. How do you deal with that or even think about it?
You know, I really don't, because like I'm one of those guys that I thrive. Like I put more pressure on myself than anyone's going to put on me, right or wrong. That's just how I'm wired.
Right.
Like no one is going to put more pressure on me than me. No one is going to be, the things that I've done right or had success, I don't really spend a lot of time on. The things that occupy my mind are the things that I feel I could have made a better decision, a better move, I could have handled. Maybe it wasn't even a roster move. It was something else I could have handled better. And that's the number one thing I tell myself is learn every time, every step, every decision, be truthful, be honest, and don't repeat your errors. And so the pressure is like, it doesn't feel different for me, because I've felt pressure when I accepted this job. The pressure is, yes, to win, but there's also the pressure of making sure that there's a lot of people that are counting on me in this organization to be at my best and do the best and make the right decisions for this team to be successful. Whatever successful is can be, deemed a lot of things, but there's no pressure any greater than that. And knowing that there's if we don't have success here, there's people's families beyond mine that can be affected. As we know, when people in charge, at the top, get let go in this business, a lot of times others can be a part of that. So all of that drives me way more than any outside pressure. And I'm sure Joe in his own way feels very similar, even though it is year one for him.
Do you have a moment or a story where all of this kind of like clicked with you, of like, this is what it means to be the general manager of the Buffalo Bills? This is what it means to you professionally. Always interested in that. Was there a moment that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always going to be moments. I don't think it's hard to put one thing. I would say the first moment was seeing the fan base's reaction after we got in 2017.
Yeah.
Just I don't recall seeing the number of tears and emotions of so many men, for one thing, and we didn't even hoist a trophy, and so it honestly was you're plenty motivated, but it motivates you anymore. Like, holy cow, that's to get into the playoffs. What would the emotions be to hoist the trophy and bring what this fan base in this city deserves, is that first world championship to Buffalo. And so that will always stick with me. There's been a lot of fun moments along the way of the 9 seasons that I've been here. But that one was probably the first time, Matt, that I'm like, wow, this is different. This is a different fan base. The passion is beyond what I even realized when I took the job.
You took the job in 2017. There were already rumblings of a new stadium. You're about to open that new stadium. I know that there's a preseason game, a couple of those, but regular season, Thursday Night Football, opening that new stadium, to see this come to fruition. I know in Kim's vision, as well as Terry's, obviously. How cool is that for you to be a part of this?
No, it's so exciting. Yeah, I know when we got here, they had tried multiple times to get that going. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to help Terry and Kim be a part of, bring success here to where people will look at the Buffalo Bills in a very positive light and make this all happen. And it took a lot of people. Obviously, they were the number one people to do that. And but it's going to be fun. It's been exciting, even where we're at. I know we've played, we've had a couple of practices. We've played a game. We're about to play another game, but it's cool to me because I've gotten texts from people like, are we actually in Buffalo? Like from the stands, like, because this stadium it could be in LA, it could be in South Beach, it could be in Vegas, it could be in New York City. It's so nice. It's got so many bells and whistles. Our players are blown away at the facilities that they have over there. It's so nice that we don't even have to come into this facility on game day. They have everything, all the pools, the tubs, the saunas, they're fed over there, anything that they could want. And then, of course, we've moved from turf to grass, which I really, really appreciate the Pagulas, and I know our players do, of funding that. It's much cheaper and more cost effective to roll out the turf. But ultimately they decided to do, and I know our players are very appreciative.
And you're talking to two guys who grew up here. And I tell people all the time, when people ask me about the stadium, I grew up being told the Bills would not be here long-term every time. Ralph Wilson, once he passes on, the NFL's not going to want the team. They're in a market that's not going to be able to support it. You're going to need a new stadium. To see that happen and know that it's here for generations. My son, who loves going to the games, as you know, for Matt and his family and his daughter to go to the games, that to me, that's the cool part of what's happening here. I get emotional thinking about it, Brandon, because, this is a city that is so passionate about it. And now we know that this team is here long-term. And for you now to be here, your roots with your family, and your kids have grown up. I know your kids when they were younger and going into college now, and your wife. And how cool is that to know that they're also a part of this long-term?
No, it's listen, when you're here this long, you're fully a Buffalonian, invested here, and we've established very good roots here, and love it, and hope to be able to stay here, for many more years and get that trophy. But I do think, you never know, but I do think if most anyone else that was awarded the team other than the Pagulas, I think it would be a different conversation. And so I don't think Terry and Kim get enough credit, not only for keeping this team here, but getting this stadium and putting the financial resources that they had to do. Yes, they had funding, but we all know that thing went way above budget. It's not something Terry would ever talk about, but I'm aware, and so I just hope, when it's all said and done, that people realize how much he cares about this community and Kim and what they've done. And it's been cool to see. I'm a proud Buffalonian. I've sent videos from where I'm watching the game up from the sidelines to some of my buddies around the league. Like, dude, you guys used to laugh at our stadium. Look at what we got now. So it's like a proud dad moment.
I have two more questions. One's football, one's non-football. Dealer's choice. Which one you want first?
Let's go non-football.
Non-football. Right. When you're not thinking about football, what are you thinking about? What are you doing to entertain yourself?
Football. That's what my wife would tell you. She's like, can we watch something else? And I struggle. I mean, they're watching preseason football, trying to watch some guy that maybe we thought about drafting that's playing for some other team. But no, in all seriousness, I love to golf. You guys know that. I think everyone knows. So, when I'm either here and there's a little off time, or I run down to South Carolina for the summer, it's play as much golf as I can, and then just get out and do fun things outdoors, get out on the water down there, just get away, just chill, like out in nature. Love to fish a little bit. Those are probably the two things if I'm not doing football, but I struggle with enjoying many other things other than football. Right? I do. It's a weakness. It's not something I'm bragging about by any means.
My football question is, and this has the chance to, you can answer this however you want. This has the chance to be the thing that gets like aggregated and people pick up on. Call your shot. What player that we are not talking about enough do you think could be really special this year?
Man, that's hard. You
can't say Josh Allen.
I can't.
No.
That's crazy. It's funny. I'm not going to give you a player.
Okay.
But I will say I'm excited to see what some of the guys will do in the new defense. Mm-hmm. Like just some of the way Jim is talking about using these guys, whether that's an Ed Oliver, a Cole Bishop, some players like that. And again, I could name some others just to see what they could do. Deion Walker, stands out as a guy that I think Deion can play in any system.
Yeah.
But I think if healthy, those guys could thrive.
I don't know if you heard the story yesterday. We had it on the radio this morning. Thought I had my first hole-in-one yesterday. Literally celebrating it.
Uh-oh.
It never went in.
What happened?
We disappeared. And then Jeremy White says, I think it went over the green.
Oh.
So anyway, like, should I feel super embarrassed, or is that kind of like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we're trying to figure out like what the right tone is here.
I have
You have one?
I have one, but
And you know it went in right away?
Well, I didn't actually see it. Two guys in the group saw it go in. I didn't actually see it go in. But they told me it did. But that's 2008. It's been way too long.
Where was it?
Way overdue. It was at this course called the Witch in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was it was fun. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know.
Were you already at the bar drinking, celebrating?
No, they told me. They said, it's going to be an expensive round if that went in. But what happened was literally celebrating. I threw my hat off. I got my hand on my head. Like, I think it went in. We think it all went in. And then Jeremy was the party pooper, and he was right. He's like, I think it went over the green. So I'm on my way to the cart, Brandon. I'm thinking, I got to remember the hole, the club, the yardage, everything, so I can say it. Then we get up there, and it wasn't. But at least I know now how I'll react if I ever do get a freaking hole-in-one.
Did you like run up and down the?
No, I didn't do that. We were celebrating it for sure. Matt had one at Olympia Fields.
Olympia Fields in Chicago. Yeah. One of my buddies played for the Blackhawks. One of my best friends growing up, and it was the day before his wedding. And his rehearsal dinner that night was at Olympia Fields. And we went out in the morning, we played. It was 171, little downhill, so 8-iron. So it looks good. Looks like I know what I'm doing. 8-iron, 171, hole-in-one. And I mean, that course has hosted Ryder Cup, US Open,
good place.
BMW, PGA. So, like, it's got the history. Put my name on the wall, right next to Bryson with the USAM, Matt Beauvais, hole-in-one.
Is your ball up there?
They actually made me a plaque like they would for the members that I have in my basement. They take out the hole, they put the scorecard, the logo for the course, which is cool. But if he would have got it, they do a hole-in-one pool for all the members.
Oh, okay.
He would have won like 20 grand.
He gets a ball. I get a meme. I'm getting memed because of this. We talked about it on the radio. I'm getting memed now.
At least you didn't do what the guy in St. Louis and fake the hole-in-one.
That is the craziest.
I don't know if I've seen this.
I will fill you in.
Yeah.
It is the craziest story. It's more insane than you could imagine.
Is it not AI? Is it just
No. He actually went out early before this tournament and dropped a ball in there and faked he knocked it in. Yeah, it was.
And then it got caught on camera. He
Yeah.
claimed like he had to take a phone call. So he ran up and played the hole before the rest of his group.
He hit the shot. But like put one way over the green. They came up and they're like, where'd you go? He's like, oh, I don't know. I couldn't see it. Then they went up to the green. They saw it was in the hole. So then there was a huge prize attached to it. They went on the cameras at the golf course and found him at like 5 a.m. putting the ball in the hole.
That's the story of a documentary later on.
So at least you didn't do that.
No, I
didn't. Well, listen, you have given so much time to us today. We really appreciate it. We've gone for close to an hour with you here. Matt, right? Anything else?
I just appreciate the time. Obviously we covered a lot of stuff today, but I always appreciate when you peel back the curtain on a lot of some of the stuff you were talking about with the pro people. I find fascinating, so I know the audience will as well. So thank you.
Awesome. You got it.
Say hi to Haley for us and your awesome family, and we appreciate you being a part of what's going on here in Buffalo to be available for us. So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Glad to do it, guys.
Buffalo Bills General Manager Football Operations, Brandon Beane. It's always game day in Buffalo. We'll talk to you next time here in the pod.